Hi folks, I wanted to share with you a little Mathematica diversion that I did that uses some of Mathematica's ability to deal with geodesy, in other words, map-related stuff. So the other day I was walking around UC Santa Barbara, University of California at Santa Barbara, and if you've ever been there, you probably know that there is an oil platform, an oil rig, that is a little bit offshore. And in fact, there's a bunch of pictures of it. You can hardly see any pictures of UCSB coastline without seeing the oil rig in the background. In fact, so here it is. Here's UCSB coastline, and here's the oil rig. Sometimes of the year, the sun sets to the north of the oil rig, to the right, and sometimes of the year the sun sets to the south, to the left of the oil rig. And I thought, well, gosh, it would be cool to see the sunset directly behind the oil rig. That would be a very dramatic picture. I wonder when it will do that. And you know, it'll probably depend a little bit on where I'm standing on the campus or in Isla Vista. Okay, so I wrote a Mathematica program to figure it out. Did some nice formatting, imported the latitude and longitude from Google Maps, just copy and pasted it. And if you say geographics of a geodisk centered at the rig with a radius of 1 mile, and then you have to zoom out a little bit. So, well, let's see what happens if you do it without the geo range. It'll sort of zoom in a little bit too much. This is a disk of radius 1 mile. But if you do it with a geo range, say, of 10 miles, you can get a nice zoom out. You see that it's pretty much where the Google Maps said it would be. Okay, that's nice. Now, just as a quick point here, it's kind of a lot of typing to do 1 mile like this. So instead, there's some you can use the natural language input. If I say control equals 1 mile, it will interpret that, and then I get this quantity here. And if I say, what is this thing under the hood? It's quantity 1 miles. So it's displaying this as a very nice little way, thanks to the natural language processing. But under the hood, it's the same thing as before. So maybe I'll just pretty this up. Instead of saying quantity 10 miles, I'll say control equals 10 miles, and accept that, rerun it, and same thing as before. Great. So that's nice. Okay. So okay, here's another picture. Fine. Now let's talk about where the sun sets. If you use the sunset command, it will tell you what time is the current sunset for today based on its best guess of your location, based on your IP address. I think it uses to do geo IP location finding. Okay, and if you say sun position, it will tell you the sun's current position as viewed from your current position. And this is the azimuth, and this is the elevation. Above the horizon, and degrees above the horizon. So if you say sun position of sunset, you give it a time, then it will tell you the sun position at that time. So at the time of the sunset, the angle, the azimuth is 242 degrees, and the angle should be pretty much 0, because that's when it should be at the horizon, and it is pretty much 0. Fine. Okay, great. So in other words, just to see if this kind of makes sense, the sun is setting somewhere over here these days. That's about 242 degrees. And what we're saying is anybody standing, if you take this 242 degree line and go 180 degrees away from it like this, anybody standing on that line would see the sunset behind the oil rig. So let's formalize this a little bit in code. So here's the oil rig. The angle that we want to be standing at is 180 degrees away from the first element of sun position, because that's the azimuth. And this is the sun position as measured from the oil rig at the time of the sunset. Okay. So then we will make a geopath. So this is how you draw lines on a map in Mathematica that goes from the rig to a destination which starts at the rig and then is displaced 8 kilometers in the angle of our choice. This is just how you do a nice little displacement. You don't want to try to be adding latitudes and longitudes. It won't work in the way that you think because of the spherical coordinates. So this is the sensible way to do adding on this displacement at this angle. So okay, anybody standing on this line will see the oil rig, which is here, in front of the sunset today. That's nice. Maybe I'll go do that. Okay, with a little bit more code, you can make an entire little GUI that will answer the question, what happens if I want to do this not today? What happens if I want to do it tomorrow or a year from now or on the winter solstice or something? Where would I have to stand? So it's the same idea as before. There's here's the rig. Let's suppose that you wanted to see T days from today. So that would be when you would want to be seeing it, and you would do the same thing as before. I want to know 180 degrees from the azimuth, which is the first element of the sun position centered at the rig, at the sunset on the day that I'm interested in, and then we'll do the same things before. We'll draw a geopath, and then all of these things are just pretty much drawing it nicely. Let's center the map at a certain latitude and longitude so we can pan around. We'll zoom it some appropriate amount, and so on. Okay, so all of these things here are sort of the ranges for the manipulator, and then these bookmarks I'll show you in a second are just things that I thought would be fun to show you. Okay, so when you execute this, you get this very nice GUI. And let's see, I'll just execute it again so we kind of get sort of the basic thing. Okay, so here's the GUI, and here's the oil rig. And on today, December 10th, 2015, this is where you would stand. Now I can't really see it very well, so maybe I'll zoom in. So I'll move the longitude over. I'm dragging this slider here, and I'll make it go a little bit higher up. I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to make you guys watch all of this in its grisly detail, but my point is that you can see pretty easily, you can drag this little thing around without very much code at all. We've made a nice little user interface where you can drag these sliders around and see how this thing changes. And so as I drag the time slider, you can see that now I'm in January, now I'm in February, now I'm in March, and so on. And you can see that where you'd have to stand in order to see the sunset behind the oil rig changes as over the course of the year. So for instance, here's but just to zoom out to show you sort of what we're talking about. The oil rig is always staying in the same place, and this line is showing you where you'd have to stand in order to see the sunset behind the oil rig. And what we're seeing is between about, let's see, February, so this is like Valentine's Day. Okay, so from Valentine's Day is sort of the last day. Oh, this is actually really cute. On Valentine's Day, that's sort of the last day that you can see the sunset behind the oil rig. Hey, cute date idea, right? The day after that, it gets a little bit too far. You'd have to be out in the water. The sun is setting too far in the north in order for you to see it. And so you'd have to be too far south. You'd be in the water. And that persists. That situation persists all the way through the summer. These are the summer months here. Now we're getting back into the winter again. The sun is setting farther and farther in the south. And it's not until the following, like late October, that you would get to see, let's zoom in even more, that you would get to see this happen again. And then all through the winter is you can see the sunset behind the oil rig if you stand at various places along the coastline. Cool. So you can go in and, oh, let's see, I have some saved things here. So suppose you wanted to see it from the library. So I've zoomed in here. This is the UCSB library. This is the 8th floor section. So there's 8 floors here. Here there's only 2. Here there's used to be 2. Now there's 4. Sorry, this is a 4th floor section. But in this 8th floor section, suppose you wanted to see the sunset behind the oil rig. When would you have to go? Well, you drag the slider around and January 15th. You could also see it on maybe January 16th. That's 37 days after today. But it would be getting a little dicey. And if you go 38 days after today, then it's setting too far. It's setting too far in the north. You wouldn't be able to see it from the library. Okay, so January 15th. Let's see. So there's a date for you. Let's see, Campus Point. We were just looking at this one before. Let's see. Let's look at another one. Oh, here's an interesting one. The winter solstice is December 21st, and that's when the sun is as south as it's going to get. So where would you have to stand when it's as south as it's going to get in order to see it? And it turns out the answer is at the end of Camino del Sur, which is some street in Isla Vista. And that's kind of interesting because this is actually a really nice park that people are probably going to have winter solstice celebrations at. And so it's kind of a funny coincidence that the way that the place that you would go when you were probably celebrating the winter solstice is also the place on the solstice where you would see the sunset behind the oil rig. You get a really nice picture. Cool. So that's that. Thanks for watching.